The sound of the front door closing echoed through our quiet home. Emily's arrival was usually marked by laughter and chatter, but tonight there was a distinct edge of seriousness in her step. I glanced up from the newspaper, noticing her heavy sigh as she walked into the living room. I could tell she was carrying something more than just the day's worries. "David, can we talk?" Emily's voice was calm but firm, a tone I recognized as one signaling a significant conversation. The words "we need to talk" usually meant trouble, but tonight it felt different, heavier. I set my newspaper aside, my heart rate quickening. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Emily took a seat on the sofa, her hands clasped in her lap. She looked at me with a mix of determination and nervousness. "You know how we've been talking about our routine, how everything's become so predictable." I nodded, already sensing where this might be going. Our life had settled into a comfortable, albeit monotonous, routine. Kids out of the house, work, dinner, sleep, rinse, and repeat. "Well," Emily continued, her voice trembling slightly, "I've been thinking a lot about our life together and how we could shake things up. I mean really shake them up." My eyebrows knitted together. "Shake things up? How?" Emily took a deep breath, as if steeling herself for what she was about to say. "I've been reading about open marriages, and I think it might be something we could consider." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. My mouth went dry. "Open marriage?" I echoed, trying to process her proposal. "Are you serious?" Emily nodded. "I am. I love you, David, and I always will. But I feel like we're stuck in a rut. I want to explore new experiences, and I think an open marriage could bring some excitement back into our lives." I stood up, pacing the room as I struggled to absorb her words. "Are you saying you want us to be with other people?" "Yes," Emily said softly, looking at me with hopeful eyes. "I think it could be good for us. It's not about being unhappy with you. It's about exploring and breaking free from the routine." I rubbed my temples, feeling a mix of confusion and anger. "And what about us? What happens to our marriage? How does this fit in?" Emily looked down, her voice barely a whisper. "I want us to stay together, but I want to open the door to new possibilities. It doesn't mean I love you any less. It means I want to add something new to our life." I stopped pacing and sat down next to her. "Emily, I don't know. This is a huge change. I mean, what if this ends up hurting us more than helping?" Emily reached out and took my hand. "I understand this is a lot to process, but I believe this could bring us closer. We'd still be each other's priority. This is about finding balance." I felt a lump in my throat. "And what about jealousy? What if things get complicated? What if I can't handle it?" Emily squeezed my hand reassuringly. "We'll set boundaries. We'll communicate. We'll make it work. But I need you to be open to the idea and discuss it with me." I exhaled deeply, feeling the weight of the decision pressing on me. "I need time to think about this." Emily nodded, her expression a mix of relief and anxiety. "Take all the time you need. I just wanted to be honest with you about what I'm feeling." I glanced at her, feeling a pang of sadness and uncertainty. "Okay, I'll think about it." Emily gave me a small, hopeful smile and squeezed my hand one last time before standing up. "Thank you for listening. I love you, David." As she walked away, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the empty space where her warmth had been. The idea of an open marriage was both tantalizing and terrifying. It was a path I never imagined we'd tread, and I had no idea how to navigate it. The days following Emily's proposal were filled with a disquieting tension. I couldn't get the idea of an open marriage out of my head. Every routine interaction with Emily was tinged with the weight of her request. It was a Friday evening, and I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, staring at my half-eaten dinner. Emily was in the living room, preparing for a girls' night out with her friends. I could tell she was excited, but I was still grappling with the enormity of her proposal. As she walked into the kitchen, her eyes sparkling, I decided it was time to talk. "Emily, can we sit down for a minute?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Emily looked at me with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Sure, David. What's up?" We took our seats at the kitchen table, the silence stretching between us. I took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about what you said. About the open marriage." Emily's face lit up with a hopeful smile. "And? Have you come to any conclusions?" I hesitated. "I've been struggling with it. It's a big change, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. But I want to understand where you're coming from." Emily leaned forward, her eyes earnest. "David, I know it's a lot to take in. But it's not about being dissatisfied with you. It's about wanting to explore and experience new things." "I get that," I said, trying to articulate my thoughts. "But how does this work in practice? I mean, how do we handle jealousy, boundaries, and—" I paused, searching for the right words. "How do we make sure this doesn't ruin what we have?" Emily took a deep breath. "We'll set rules and boundaries. We can agree on what's acceptable and what isn't. And we'll communicate openly about everything. I want us to be honest with each other. I just don't know if I'm ready for this," I admitted. "I mean, it sounds like a good idea in theory, but what if it gets too complicated? What if it changes how we feel about each other?" Emily reached across the table and took my hand. "I understand your concerns. That's why I want us to approach this carefully. We can start slowly and see how it goes. I promise I'll be transparent with you." I looked at her, feeling torn between my desire to make her happy and my own fears about the unknown. "What about Laura? I mean, she's your best friend. Isn't it awkward to involve her in this?" Emily nodded thoughtfully. "It might be awkward at first, but she's someone I trust. I think it could work because we both know her well. But if you're uncomfortable with that, we can reconsider." I rubbed my temples, feeling overwhelmed. "I just want to make sure we're not doing this out of a sense of obligation. I need to know that we're both on the same page, and that this doesn't jeopardize our marriage." Emily's eyes softened. "David, this is about finding a new balance for us. If we both agree to this, we need to be committed to making it work. But if it's too much, we can always reassess. I don't want to force anything." I sighed, feeling the burden of the decision weigh heavily on me. "Okay, let's say we try this. What do we do first?" Emily smiled, her relief palpable. "We start by setting some ground rules. We talk about our boundaries and what we're comfortable with. And we keep communicating openly throughout." I nodded, feeling the mix of apprehension and resolve. "All right, let's take it one step at a time." Emily squeezed my hand, her expression one of gratitude and hope. "Thank you for being willing to try, David. I know this isn't easy, but it means a lot to me." As Emily left for her night out, I sat alone at the table, reflecting on the conversation. The path ahead was uncertain, but I was determined to approach it with an open mind. The idea of an open marriage was daunting, but if it meant rekindling excitement in our lives, I was willing to give it a chance. The weeks following our agreement to explore an open marriage were a whirlwind of mixed emotions. I had reluctantly accepted the idea, and now, as I began to act on it, the reality of the situation felt both thrilling and unsettling. Laura, Emily's best friend, was the first person we had agreed to include in this new arrangement. We had planned a casual meetup, but it was clear from the moment I saw her that things were about to change. First encounter with Laura. It was a Friday evening when Laura and I met for dinner. The restaurant was a cozy, dimly lit place, perfect for a relaxed conversation. As I waited at the table, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of nervousness and excitement. When Laura arrived, she looked effortlessly elegant in a dark blue dress that accentuated her features. Her smile was warm and inviting. "David, it's so good to see you," Laura said, giving me a friendly hug. "I hope you're ready for a fun evening." I managed a nervous smile. "Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to it." We ordered drinks and talked about everyday topics, work, hobbies, and mutual friends. The conversation was easy, and Laura's charm began to ease my apprehensions. As the evening progressed, I could feel a shift in the atmosphere. There was an unspoken tension, a magnetism that I hadn't anticipated. The affair begins after dinner. Laura suggested a nightcap at her place. Why don't we go to my apartment for a drink? It's just around the corner. I hesitated for a moment but then agreed, sensing that this was where things were heading. At her apartment, Laura poured us both glasses of wine. We sat on the couch, the soft lighting creating a seductive ambience. "So, how are you finding this new arrangement?" Laura asked, her voice low and curious. I took a sip of my wine, trying to find the right words. "It's different. I'm still trying to get used to it." Laura leaned closer, her hand brushing against mine. "It's all about taking it one step at a time. If you're ever unsure, just let me know. I want this to be enjoyable for both of us." Her touch was electrifying, and I felt a surge of desire. "I appreciate that," I said, trying to steady my nerves. "I'm just trying to balance everything." Laura smiled, her eyes locked onto mine. "We can make this work. Just be honest with me about your feelings." The conversation soon turned more intimate. Laura's kiss was passionate, and as things escalated, I found myself caught up in the moment. It was exhilarating, yet I felt a pang of guilt. Growing discontent over the next few weeks, Laura and I continued our affair. Each encounter was filled with excitement and new experiences, but as time went on, I began to feel a sense of dissatisfaction. The thrill of the forbidden was fading, replaced by a complex web of emotions. One evening, after a particularly intense rendezvous, I sat with Laura on her couch, feeling a heaviness settle in my chest. "Laura, can we talk for a minute?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Laura looked concerned. "Sure, what's on your mind?" "I've been feeling a bit conflicted," I admitted. "The excitement of being with you is undeniable, but I'm also struggling with how this affects my marriage and my feelings." Laura's expression softened. "I understand. This isn't easy, especially when emotions are involved. Do you want to talk about it?" "I think we need to discuss where we're going with this," I said. "It's not just about us. It's about how it impacts Emily and me. I don't want to lose what we have, but I also don't want to ignore how this is making me feel." Laura nodded thoughtfully. "I appreciate your honesty. We can take a step back and reassess. Maybe we should talk to Emily about how we're feeling." Conflict with Emily. I knew I had to be honest with Emily about my growing discontent. One evening, we sat down together in the living room, and I decided it was time to share my feelings. "Emily, can we talk?" I said, my voice laced with apprehension. Emily looked up from her book, sensing the seriousness in my tone. "Of course, what's wrong?" "I've been having mixed feelings about this open marriage," I admitted. "The affair with Laura has been exciting, but it's also brought up a lot of emotions I didn't expect." Emily's eyes widened with concern. "What kind of emotions?" "I'm feeling guilty, conflicted," I said. "It's affecting how I feel about our marriage and my own sense of self. I thought I could handle it, but it's more complicated than I anticipated." Emily's face softened, and she reached out to hold my hand. "I'm sorry you're feeling this way. We should have talked more about what this arrangement would mean for both of us. Let's figure this out together." I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and trepidation. "I want us to be honest and work through this. I don't want to jeopardize what we have." Emily smiled gently. "We'll work through it. Let's take a step back and see where we need to adjust. Communication is key." As we sat together, holding hands and talking openly about our feelings, I realized that navigating this open marriage would require more than just excitement. It would need trust, honesty, and a willingness to adapt. The journey was far from over, and we had much to figure out. The weeks after our initial exploration of an open marriage brought with them a whirlwind of emotions. The thrill of new experiences with Laura had given way to a deeper emotional turmoil that I hadn't anticipated. As I grappled with my feelings, the impact on my marriage became increasingly apparent. Struggling with emotions one quiet evening, Emily and I sat in the living room. the silence between us thick with unspoken tension. The initial excitement of our arrangement had faded, leaving a residue of guilt and discomfort. Emily, sensing my distress, turned to me with a concerned expression. "David, you've been distant lately. Is everything okay?" I sighed deeply, struggling to find the right words. "Emily, I need to talk to you about something. This open marriage, it's affecting me in ways I didn't expect." Emily's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "I've been feeling overwhelmed," I admitted. "The excitement with Laura has turned into something more complicated. I'm feeling guilty, conflicted, and it's starting to impact how I see us and myself." Emily's face softened with empathy. "I didn't realize it was affecting you so deeply. I thought we were handling this together." I nodded. "I know. It's just that the thrill of the arrangement has worn off, and now I'm left with feelings I didn't anticipate. It's affecting how I feel about our marriage." Emily took a deep breath, her expression thoughtful. "I'm sorry you're feeling this way. I didn't want to make things difficult for us. I thought this would bring excitement, but if it's causing you pain, we need to address it." Impact on the marriage. As the emotional fallout deepened, I found myself increasingly withdrawn. The excitement of the affair had turned into a burden, and the emotional distance between Emily and me grew wider. One afternoon, Emily confronted me with a mix of frustration and concern. "David, we need to talk about this. I've been noticing how withdrawn you've become. It's affecting us." I looked at her, feeling the weight of my emotions. "I'm struggling, Emily. The arrangement we agreed on is taking a toll on me. I feel like I'm losing touch with how I feel about you and our marriage." Emily's eyes were filled with tears. "I never wanted this to hurt us. I thought we could explore new experiences without losing what we have. But it seems like things are falling apart." "I know," I said, feeling a deep sense of regret. "I didn't foresee how emotionally taxing this would be. I feel like I'm caught in a storm of conflicting feelings." Emily reached out, holding my hands in hers. "We need to find a way to address this. If this arrangement is causing us pain, maybe we need to reconsider our approach." Conversation with Laura. Realizing that I needed to be honest with Laura about how I was feeling, I arranged to meet her at a local cafe. The conversation was difficult, as I was torn between my emotions and the reality of our situation. Laura greeted me with a warm smile, but her expression turned serious as she saw my troubled face. "David, you look like something's been bothering you. What's going on?" "I've been struggling with our arrangement," I said, my voice filled with frustration. "The excitement has turned into something more complicated, and it's affecting my marriage and my emotions." Laura looked concerned. "I'm sorry to hear that. I didn't want to add to your problems. How can we work through this?" "I don't know yet," I admitted. "I think we need to take a step back and figure out how to handle this without causing more damage." Laura nodded thoughtfully. "If you need space or want to change how we're approaching this, just let me know. I want to make sure we're all on the same page and not hurting each other." Reconnecting with Emily, the emotional fallout was taking its toll, and Emily and I decided to spend a weekend away together to reconnect and discuss our situation away from the pressures of daily life. We rented a cabin in the woods, hoping that a change of scenery might help us find clarity. One evening, as we sat by the fireplace, Emily spoke softly. "David, this time away has been good for us. I think we've both realized how important our relationship is." "I agree," I said, feeling a renewed sense of connection. "We've been through a lot, and it's clear that we need to reassess our arrangement." Emily took my hand, her eyes filled with sincerity. "I love you, David. I want us to be happy and healthy, both individually and together. If this open marriage is causing more harm than good, we need to find a way to fix it." I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and resolve. "Let's talk about what we need to do to move forward. I want us to be honest and work through this together." As we talked late into the night, we began to explore ways to address the challenges we faced and strengthen our marriage. The road ahead was uncertain, but the commitment to facing it together gave me hope for finding a new path forward. As Emily and I began to reflect on our open marriage arrangement and its effects, we reached a crucial juncture. The emotional fallout had made it clear that our previous agreement wasn't working as intended. The turning point came when we realized that true change required not only acknowledging our difficulties, but also taking decisive action to restore our relationship. Realizing the need for change, the turning point emerged during a particularly honest conversation we had while sitting in our living room one evening. The air was heavy with the weight of our recent struggles. Emily turned to me, her face lined with concern. "David, I think we need to seriously reconsider our arrangement. This isn't working for either of us." I sighed deeply, feeling the gravity of her words. "I've been thinking the same thing. It's clear that the excitement we hoped for has been overshadowed by confusion and hurt. I think it's time for us to make a change." Emily nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "We've tried to explore new experiences, but it's clear that we need to focus on rebuilding what we already have. How do you want to proceed?" I took a deep breath, trying to articulate my thoughts. "I think we need to reestablish our boundaries and reconnect on a deeper level. This arrangement has caused us pain, and it's time to focus on our marriage." Reconnecting with Emily, in an effort to reconnect, we planned a weekend getaway to a serene cabin in the countryside. The goal was to spend quality time together and address the issues that had arisen. As we hiked through the lush forest surrounding the cabin, Emily took my hand and looked at me with a mixture of hope and apprehension. "David, I want to make sure we're on the same page moving forward. What are your thoughts on how we can rebuild our relationship?" I squeezed her hand, feeling a renewed sense of commitment. "I think we need to focus on rebuilding trust and communication. We've been through a lot, and it's important that we address our issues openly." Emily smiled softly. "I agree. Let's make a commitment to each other to prioritize our relationship and be honest about our needs and feelings." Confronting Laura after our weekend getaway, I knew it was time to address the situation with Laura. I arranged to meet her at a quiet cafe, wanting to have an open and respectful conversation. When I arrived, Laura was already seated, her expression reflecting a mix of curiosity and concern. "David, it's good to see you. What's on your mind?" "I wanted to talk to you about our arrangement," I began, my voice steady, but filled with a hint of unease. "Emily and I have realized that it's not working for us. We've decided to reestablish our boundaries and focus on our marriage." Laura's face fell slightly, and she nodded thoughtfully. "I understand. I'm sorry to hear that things haven't worked out as you hoped. How can we handle this transition?" "I think it's best if we take a step back from our arrangement," I said. "We need to focus on repairing our relationship and finding a way forward that works for both of us." Laura's expression softened, and she reached out to place a comforting hand on mine. "I appreciate your honesty, David. If you need any support during this transition, let me know. I want what's best for you both." Reaffirming our commitment back at home, Emily and I began to implement changes to strengthen our relationship. We started by scheduling regular date nights to reconnect and communicate openly about our feelings. One evening, as we sat together over a candlelit dinner, Emily looked at me with a renewed sense of determination. "David, I feel like we're on the right path now. Let's make sure we continue to prioritize our relationship and keep the lines of communication open." I smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "I agree. We've faced challenges, but I believe that we're stronger for it. Let's focus on rebuilding trust and ensuring that our relationship remains a priority." Emily nodded, her eyes filled with warmth. "We've come a long way, and I'm hopeful for our future. Let's continue to work together and support each other." As we embraced, I felt a renewed sense of hope and commitment. The turning point in our journey had brought us closer together, and I was determined to navigate the challenges ahead with Emily by my side. The realization that our open marriage arrangement was causing more harm than good led Emily and me to a crucial turning point: negotiation and reconciliation. We both understood that moving forward required not only addressing the issues that had surfaced, but also finding a way to rebuild our relationship on a solid foundation. Setting up the conversation to facilitate a productive discussion, we decided to schedule a formal meeting where we could address our concerns and negotiate new terms for our relationship. We chose a quiet, neutral space, a cozy corner of our favorite cafe, where we could speak candidly without distractions. As we settled into our seats, Emily looked at me with a mix of apprehension and hope. "David, I think it's important that we lay everything on the table and work out a plan that allows us to move forward together." I nodded, feeling a sense of determination. "Absolutely. We need to be honest about our needs and expectations. This is our chance to rebuild and strengthen our relationship." Open dialogue. Our conversation began with a review of our current arrangement and its impact on our marriage. Emily was the first to speak, her voice steady but emotional. "David, I've been reflecting on everything that's happened," she said. "I realize now that the open marriage has created more problems than it's solved. I want us to focus on each other and rediscover what makes our relationship special." I looked at her, feeling a mix of relief and resolve. "I agree. We've experienced a lot of pain and confusion. It's clear that we need to prioritize our relationship and redefine our boundaries." Emily took a deep breath, then continued, "Let's discuss what we both need to feel secure and happy. I want us to be clear about our expectations and make sure we're both on the same page." I nodded in agreement. "Let's start by addressing the areas where we've struggled and find ways to address those issues." Negotiating new terms, we spent several hours discussing our feelings and expectations, carefully considering how to address the challenges we had faced. One of the key issues was finding a balance between our individual needs and our commitment to each other. Emily looked thoughtful as she spoke. "David, I think we need to establish clearer boundaries and make time for each other. Regular date nights and open communication are essential. What do you think?" I smiled, appreciating her proactive approach. "I agree. Regular check-ins and quality time together are crucial. We should also focus on rebuilding trust and addressing any lingering issues openly." Emily nodded, a sense of relief evident in her expression. "It sounds like we're on the right track. Let's commit to being honest with each other and working together to strengthen our relationship." Reconciliation and renewed commitment. As we concluded our discussion, Emily and I felt a renewed sense of commitment to each other. We made a pact to prioritize our relationship and address any issues that arose with openness and honesty. One evening, as we reflected on our conversation, Emily looked at me with a hopeful smile. "David, I'm really glad we had this conversation. I feel like we're moving in the right direction." I reached out to take her hand, feeling a deep sense of connection. "I agree. We've faced challenges, but I believe in us and our ability to overcome them. Let's continue to work together and support each other." Emily's eyes sparkled with warmth. "We've made a lot of progress, and I'm excited about our future. Let's keep building on this foundation and stay committed to each other." Implementing changes. Over the next few weeks, Emily and I began implementing the changes we had discussed. We scheduled regular date nights, made time for meaningful conversations, and focused on rebuilding our trust and intimacy. During one of our date nights, as we enjoyed a quiet dinner together, Emily looked at me with a sense of contentment. "David, I feel like we're rediscovering each other. This time together has been really valuable." I smiled, feeling a renewed sense of hope. "I agree. It's amazing how focusing on each other can strengthen our bond. I'm grateful for this opportunity to rebuild and grow together." As we embraced, I felt a profound sense of renewal in our relationship. The negotiation and reconciliation had given us a fresh start, and I was committed to nurturing and cherishing the love we had worked so hard to restore. The journey through our open marriage had led us to a significant turning point. As Emily and I faced the aftermath of our decision and our efforts to rebuild, it became clear that we needed to establish a final resolution. A clear, renewed understanding of our relationship that honored both our individual needs and our commitment to each other. Reflecting on our journey, it was a chilly evening when Emily and I sat down in our living room, now transformed into a more inviting space with soft lighting and comfortable furniture. We had spent months working through our issues, and it was time to reflect on our progress and finalize our new terms. Emily looked at me with a mix of vulnerability and resolve. "David, we've been through a lot. I want us to take this time to finalize our resolution and make sure we're both clear about where we stand." I nodded, feeling a deep sense of agreement. I think it's important to take a moment and appreciate how far we've come. We've faced challenges, but we've also made strides in understanding each other better. Establishing new terms, we began discussing the specific changes we wanted to make moving forward. Our conversation was candid and focused on ensuring that our new terms would foster a healthier and more fulfilling relationship. Emily spoke earnestly. "David, I want us to focus on strengthening our connection. Regular date nights and open communication are non-negotiable. I also think we should set aside time for individual pursuits that make us happy." I responded with equal sincerity. "I agree. We need to maintain our individual interests while prioritizing our time together. Let's also commit to being transparent about our feelings and addressing any issues that arise promptly." Emily's eyes softened as she continued. "I also want us to work on rebuilding trust and intimacy. It's important that we both feel secure and valued in our relationship." I reached out to take her hand, feeling a renewed sense of commitment. "Absolutely. Trust and intimacy are the foundation of our relationship. We've come a long way, and I'm committed to making sure we continue to build on that foundation." Celebrating our new understanding to celebrate our renewed commitment, we decided to host a small gathering with close friends. It was a way to share our journey and express our gratitude for the support we had received. During the gathering, as we mingled with friends and enjoyed the evening, Emily and I found a quiet moment to reflect on our resolution. Emily looked at me with a warm smile. "David, I'm really proud of what we've accomplished. Our relationship feels stronger than ever." I smiled back, feeling a deep sense of contentment. "I feel the same way. We've faced challenges, but we've grown so much from them. I'm excited about our future and the possibilities it holds." Moving forward with our final resolution in place, Emily and I began to focus on moving forward with a renewed sense of purpose. We implemented the changes we had agreed upon, making sure to prioritize our relationship while also honoring our individual needs. One evening, as we settled into our routine, Emily turned to me with a sense of peace. "David, I feel like we've reached a new chapter in our relationship. It's exciting to think about what's ahead." I nodded, feeling a sense of optimism. "I agree. We've worked hard to get here, and I'm confident that we can continue to grow and support each other." As we embraced, I felt a profound sense of closure and renewal. The final resolution had given us a clear path forward, and I was committed to nurturing our relationship with the love and dedication it deserved. With a renewed sense of hope and commitment, Emily and I faced the future together, ready to embrace the challenges and joys that lay ahead. Our journey had taught us valuable lessons about love, trust, and partnership, and we were determined to build a lasting and fulfilling future together.